Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, We Coach, the Florida Coaches Coalition, Wall of Fame by Vital Signs, and the global community of women in high school sports. You need to check out these four great organizations, add them to your network, and now don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes and take a listen to our podcast sponsor messages. If you're not already using these products, you really should. So let's take a listen to the commercials. Here we go. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. They're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets for all your events, not just athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And the best part, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager providing hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and get started. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your school's top performers, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. But it's so much more than that. The Wall of Fame is also an extensive content program that helps you tell more compelling stories to better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products. And when you're ready to buy, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake and get a 5% discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their tables and their scoreboards in action. They not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. One of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table, and you can too. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products, and their customer service is great too. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. Huddle's not just for football. Go to huddle.com and find out how to turn your school into a huddle school. And they're going to send you, your coaches, your teams, the tools that they need to help every athlete play at the highest level. It's a professional grade solution, and you're going to find it at huddle.com. We believe in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a huddle school. We want to thank Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Use our code ADPOD10 and you get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom content for your school's social media channel. We want to thank Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com and check out the entire Snap Mobile suite of platforms designed to help you as an athletic director do your job better. Snap Raise is the fundraising platform. We've used it with great success, and they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where you can get your money before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anyone else offers that. Go to snapraise.com and check it out today. That's snapraise.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for you and your school that's going to allow you to take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. Typically, ADs only hear back from that 2%, the squeaky wheel parent or the frustrated student athlete. And we need to hear back from them so we can affect positive change. But Athletic Surveys is going to collect that data for you from the other 98% that love and support your program, which is a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to that squeaky wheel parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com and get started today. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going all the way out to the great state of Washington, where I spent my high school years. And we're going to be visiting with a new friend of the show, Russ Waterman. Russ is a certified athletic administrator. He's the district athletic director, works at Eastmont High School. That's in East Wenatchee, Washington, in the center of the state, if you're not familiar. Had a chance to meet Russ at the national conference in Nashville. Did a great presentation. He did a great presentation with some of his cohorts from Washington State. And we're excited that he's spending some time with us today. So, Russ Waterman, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Jake, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be here.
Well, as you know, you come very highly recommended by one of our mutual friends, Suzanne Vick, and very glad that again we could get you on the show. So let's go and jump right in.
Sure.
We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Take us through maybe the high school and college years. Then we'll take a quick break and then come back and hear about your early career. But what's the Russ Waterman story?
Well, you've got the real life story, then you have the witness protection program story. So I'm going to give you the combination. So no, grew up in Tacoma, Washington. That's over on the coast. It's about 45 minutes south of Seattle, 45 minutes north of the state capital in Olympia. Went to a school, then was named Wilson High School in Tacoma. It's now Silas High School. That's where the connection with Suzanne Vick comes in. She was a class behind me, volleyball player. I was an athlete there, 3-sport athlete, and it was good to reconnect with her during the COVID years. The COVID year seems like years right now, but in the state conference, Washington State Athletic Administrators Association, we have weekly podcasts. So it was good to reconnect with her, and you're right, she's a great person, great athletic director. So from there, went and played football and baseball at the University of Puget Sound, which is in Tacoma. People do, so UPS people always make the joke, what can Brown do for you? And I say, I don't know, but I can deliver that package quicker than anybody else. But played there for 4 years. Did my student teaching and internship at Bellarmine Preparatory School in Tacoma. Coached football there for 1 year. And then their head coach, Ron Reeves, decided that he was done with the I-5 corridor and all the congestion and everything else. And he took the head football job at Wenatchee High School in Wenatchee, Washington. I was 21, 22 at the time, had no real roots, and came with him and did assistant coaching with him and got hired on as a physical education and health teacher at that high school. Did that for about 8 years. 12 years. Coached basketball, football, did some track, did the jumpers, and then got my administrative degree, and then jumped ship, went across the Columbia River 10 minutes away, and started my career at Eastmont High School. And I've been the athletic director for 13 of my last 20 years here at Eastmont.
Again, I always love to hear the stories, and all of those names are familiar to me because I went to high school at Battleground down in the southwest corner of the state. People that don't know Washington, you mentioned the I-5 corridor, Vancouver and Portland up through Olympia and Tacoma, Seattle, and then up to Canada. Probably a more populous area of the state. And then, that eastern part, you've got, central Washington and eastern Washington, that's a whole different country almost. But very beautiful, very outdoorsy. As that young coach, following what I'm going to guess is probably one of your mentors, any trepidations about moving from that I-5 corridor out into the wilds of Wenatchee?
Actually, no, the connection with Wenatchee was my last couple of years in college. A couple of teammates and we all played on a men's fast pitch team. And back then in the day, in the late 80s and 90s, that was pretty popular in the state of Washington. And so we would travel to Wenatchee and play in the Wenatchee tournament. So I was familiar with the area. But a visual for any of our listeners that don't know, you get through the Cascade Mountain range right there, and it's a mountain, right? There's snow and Mount Rainier and everything. As you come out of that, and there's a definite point on I-90, Interstate 90. God stopped planting trees. Done. Flat ground, farmland. for ages. And then you get, about 2.5 hours in, and you start to get to Spokane, and God decided, oh, you know what? I think I'll start planting some more trees. And so when you talk about that rural area, it really is. It's great farmland, great recreational area. If you look at the apples you buy at the store, there's a pretty good chance it came out of Washington State, and it either came out of the Wenatchee area or about 2 hours south out of Yakima. That's probably where those apples came from. So I don't think there's trepidation. I think challenges were always, you're 22 years old, you can face anything. I think the trepidation came with, yeah, I'm not at home. I'm really away from my family, and I've got to learn how to make my own life work in budgeting and everything else. So that became the challenge. So
No, and obviously it's worked out very well for you. For our listeners, our guest today is Russ Waterman. He's a certified athletic administrator, and he's the district AD for Eastmont High School, and that's in East Wenatchee, Washington. We're going to take our first break, but we're going to be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com, and they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays, dances, concerts, even graduation. And the best part, every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing you hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and get started today. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your school's top performers, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. But it's so much more than that. The Wall of Fame is also an extensive content program. It's going to allow you to tell more compelling stories that'll better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their great products. And when you're ready to purchase, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake for a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Bring your school's legacy to life. Russ, you were saying that you guys use Wall of Fame?
Oh, I tell you what, man, it's been a different game changer. Yeah. For us, it's just everything to display that. We don't have to worry about a lot of things. Those plaques eat up a lot of space. And, once you get about 5, 6 years, 7 years in, you're like, do we put them up on the rafters? What do we do with them? So it's been a blessing. They did a great job getting us all set up. And Kira Donabauer, our account manager, she was a rock star. I just send her stuff on the OneDrive, and it's up in a day. So it's great.
Yeah, those devices for our state association, we use Wall of Fame as our Hall of Fame. It's just amazing what they can do. So appreciate that shout out.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's go and jump back into the podcast. You mentioned that you made the big move from the I-5 corridor to the central part of the state, Wenatchee area. And spent a few years teaching and coaching before you came over to the dark side and joined us as an athletic director. Let's talk about that. What was the motivation behind it? Was there some encouragement maybe from one of your administrators? How did that all take place?
It all came back to grad school, and so when I was earning my administration credentials to be an educational administrator, I did my final project. I don't know that I was smart enough to do a thesis project, so I just got to do a regular project. And that was the duality of the vice principal and AD role, and really started getting into that and saying, that's something I had an interest in, being athletically inclined. And if it wasn't for athletics, so I probably wouldn't have been where I was in my career or a person that I was. We all know the impacts and influences coaches have on kids. And I started to think that might be something that I want to do. And so I did my project on that. So as I started as a vice principal, went through about 8 years of that, and I was in charge of an alternative program. I was in charge of security. I was in charge of, gang suppression. I was in charge of attendance and discipline and all that kind of stuff. And, our current AD was retiring, and the principal came to me and says, "Hey, what do you think?" I go, "Yeah, without a doubt, I'll take it on, but I can't do it all. You have to take something off my plate." So they took the alternative program away and replaced it with the athletic program. And for many years, I was doing that dual job of the VPAD. And those that are listening that do that job, you know what that is. It's not only just a meat grinder. When they're done grinding you there, they put you in the shredder. It's a long day, and you got to be on your toes and pivot at a moment's notice on what you're doing, because you could be dealing with a kid that doesn't want to be in a math class, and all of a sudden you call, hey, the bus broke down, we need to find a new way to get people there, and then the officials didn't show up, and all the things that can go on with that. And then the last several years, probably at the time when COVID hit, or the year prior to COVID hit, we started to peel back that AD or the AP role and more of the AD role. Of course, then COVID hit, and then I became the athletic director, COVID director. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the country right now that are listening that did the same thing. We got to make some value changes right there. And so that was kind of how it did. I don't look back and regret a minute of it. It's been a challenge, a different set of challenges. But if we don't challenge ourselves and grow and stretch, then what I would not want to be in a job that I'm stagnant.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think many people in our profession, at the local and even the national level made the comment, during COVID, there, and I agreed with this. I don't think there was another, position, another professional that was better suited to deal with everything that COVID threw at us, that collective us, than an athletic director, because, that's what we do. We juggle flaming chainsaws, and oh, you got one more thing? All right, we got that. Let's go back. I want you to think back to maybe that first year when you became the athletic director. And I know you had a lot of other things on your plate
Oh yeah.
as that VP, but to now, 2022, 2023, how has the, throw out COVID and throw out those types of things, but how has the role of a school-based athletic director changed from your perspective?
You know, I think the major thing that goes on, I think you're exactly right. The analogy of flaming, chainsaws is pretty accurate. We manage chaos. That's what we manage, and we organize it, and we bring sanity from chaos. When you think about the number of athletes that you've got to clear, the number of athletes you've got to deal with their issues, the number of coaches, everything that could possibly go on, add parents into that, add community into that. It is probably one of the most, I won't say important, but probably structure wise, you've got the target on your back just as much as the superintendent or building principal does. And nobody ever peeks in and sees how the biology scores are going on the tests on Friday. Nobody jumps into the English class and says, how's the essays going on? But everybody's picking up the newspaper on Saturday morning and looking at the scores, and everybody's checking this and checking that out. So the management portion has stayed the same. I think the role is changing now to where we have to really be more considerate of our customers, not only our athletes, but the parents, and their needs. And I don't think it's, I don't want to paint it in a negative sense. I just want to say, I think it's been bubbled to the top a little bit more, where you might have had personnel issues with coaches, or trying to hire coaches, or trying to find budget constraints, or expand budgets. Now it's more along the interpersonal relationships that you have with your parents, and meeting their needs and what they have. And for me, it's been a good test of expanding my communication, becoming more transparent. My last superintendent, Garn Christensen, who has just retired, one of the great things that he used to talk to us all the time is tell your narrative, tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, somebody else will tell your story, and it may not be the right story. And so that's been kind of a focus for me, is to be more transparent, work on our culture. What we're looking at building through educational based athletics, which can be juxtaposed to select programs or AAU programs or other things. And we, oftentimes you come to a loggerhead in regard to that, but the communication piece to the parents, that this is all about their kid and making them a better person through the process of athletics. For us at Eastmont, our mission is Wildcats today, Wildcats for life. So we're going to try and equip our athletes with all the tools they need while they're with us here, Wildcats today. Mental toughness, how to plan, how to goal set, how to overcome adversity, how to be resilient, how to serve. And then, when they graduate from us, when they leave our program, that's where the Wildcats for life comes in. We're preparing them to go out. All these things, these great lessons that they're going to learn from athletics, is going to be applicable in their relationships, in their families, in their jobs. It all relates, and so that's become the focus. Whereas probably first part of the job was, did I get the busing right? Did I get the officials here right? Did I get this right? And I also learned really quick, you got to delegate duties. You got to delegate. Otherwise, the plate turns into a platter, which turns into a tray, which now turns into a table, and you can't carry a table around.
I love that visual that you just ended. The plate to a tray to or a platter to a table. Great stuff. Boy, you touched on so many things. I think I may use that whole segment for one of our headliner advertisers. Um, the importance, the perception of the importance of the athletic department, and it is important. It's the front porch, as a lot of people like to say, of the school. There's no homecoming calculus exam. Okay. There's no homecoming play, homecoming concert. It is sports. That's what people are interested in. It is the front porch. I also love the way you talked about being transparent, telling your stories, sharing the stories. That's why I tell people it's so important to brand and it's a reason why you, not maybe you, Russ, but you listener, you should have a podcast and talk about all the great things your students are doing, your coaches are doing. Because if you don't talk about your program, somebody else will, and they might not know all the great things. Wow. That's a terrific segment now that I walked all over your toes.
Oh, good.
What are some things that you do? Let's stay with this topic. What are some things that you do specifically in that area of telling the story and branding and getting announcements out? Anything that I guess has been really effective and, let's say, fun and easy for you to do as an AD?
The biggest thing is for us is the proper use of social media. That's our customer. When you look at the families, the parents, and the kids right now, that is how they get their information. The print is, I'm not gonna say print is dead, because it's not, it's still there. But for these people, it is instantaneous. It's on their phone, it's on their tablet, it's where they are. So we've done I think we've done a real good job of getting our message out, more than schedules, to do player highlights, to do, for us, one of the things that we do is Wildcats of the Month. And this ties into where we made some changes coming out of COVID in our own core principles and everything else that we do. So now our Wildcats of the Month is based upon our core principles. And then we will say, okay, so what did Jake do in March for baseball? What did he do that met one of our core principles of Wildcats? And so the coaches will send that in on a Google Doc. I just cut and paste, I put it into a nice thing, and we send it out on social media, and then the achievements that went on in that month. So it's really focusing on how our kids are applying our core principles, becoming that better person, that Wildcats today, Wildcats for life, and doing that. So social media has become invaluable to do that. Wall of Fame, been just a huge part of that, to display that. I mean, kids walk by all the time and they're punching everything they can on that display to look at it. And our kids will walk by, they'll take pictures, right? So if you have a basketball player who's got Wildcat of the Month, they're going to walk by with their family and they bring it up, and it's, the big screen, and they'll take pictures with it. So that became the first thing. I think we did a marketability deal. We actually had our local TV station that covers our athletic events create a promo video that explains what we're about. And we try to get that out on social media. It's on our website. We try to get that to play as much as possible. We use, a programming for our announcements at our games. We use their programming for music, and we get our message out that way. We do programs. We get our message out that way. We have incentives for our athletes. We give out bag tags that are made. And our athletes get it. On one side is our core principles. On the next side it says all in, and it has the phrase E plus R equals O, which, if you're familiar with anything to do with Focus 3 and Tim Kite, Brian Kite, and Urban Meyer, event plus response equals outcome. We preach that to our kids all the time about it doesn't matter what it is. It could be athletically, it could be in your math class, it could be in a relationship, it could be in the lunchroom. Any event that you have, you can't control. You can't control the outcome, but you totally can control that R, that response. So that's the kind of the messaging standpoint we're doing right now. It's funny you talk about podcasts, and I thought about doing that about 2 years ago, and a good friend of mine said, okay, if you're going to do that, what 5 things are you taking off your plate? Because it will eat up some of your time if you're going to do it right and have it to be successful. And you know this, Jake. You got a very successful podcast. You know the time and the effort and the dedication it takes to make it good, because you're not going to put out a shabby product. You're going to put out a good product. So again, that's a viable way of getting your message out.
Well, and you already talked about how to make that possible. Delegate. I guarantee you've got a young coach or an old coach, an assistant, somebody that's looking to add to their leadership portfolio. Sit down with them, let them become your podcast guru. One of the segments, of course, is going to be, let's sit down with the athletic director, and you're going to have your message, but let them be that podcast person. Or even you've got a student that's a sports geek and a tech geek, and with supervision and oversight, they could become your podcast person. It sounds like you're doing some great stuff. Let's go ahead and do this early. Listeners, if you've been paying attention, I think you can see very easily that, Russ has some great things going at his school. Russ, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
The best way is through email. So if we can put it, it's watermanr@eastmont206.org. Just shoot me an email. Hey, heard the podcast, interested about what you do with social media. I got to throw this out there because I know you're probably doing an ad later on. And people go, I don't have time for social media. Oh my God, it's so time consuming. No, delegate. How do you delegate? You purchase something like Gipper. We have been a Gipper user for a year. It is so user friendly right now. I mean, whether it's on my phone, it's on my computer, I'm on the sideline or wherever, it is just godsend. So if you're thinking about doing social media and expanding that, Gipper is one way to go to.
Well, we are going to be giving our Gipper shout out here as we take our next break. Our guest today is Russ Waterman. He's a certified athletic administrator. He's the district AD for Eastmont schools in Wenatchee, East Wenatchee, Washington. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Russ really set it up for us, but we do want to thank Gipper for their support of the podcast. If you're not familiar with it, go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Use our podcast code if you're new to Gipper. That's ADPOD10, and you'll get 10% off. Gipper.com. Create custom content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor scoring tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their tables and their boards in action. One of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table. We used it for home games, of course, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Russ Waterman, certified athletic administrator. Russ, one of the things that we also like to do is give our guests the opportunity to give a shout out to some of the mentors that they've had over their life. None of us get to where we're at on our own. So the expression I always use is, I still hear those voices in my head. Do you have any voices that you hear?
Well, the doctors say the medicine should cure that soon. So yes. And it's funny that you talk about that, Jake, about hearing the voices, because there's just certain things that crop up in the job in your life, and you hear that voice, and it's kind of like the old, I mean, I'm going to go real techie nerd here, man. It's like Obi-Wan talking, to Anakin, or Yoda talking to Obi-Wan. You hear the voice, and that's the people in your life. I heard this statement a long time ago. Life is a dark and windy road that's poorly lit. But when you find the spots that are lit, those lights are people that are mentors in your life, and they're put there for a reason, to show you the path, to keep you on the path and guide you on the path. And I can name all the way back. I think my first mentor or first person that really connected with me, and I would never ever want to, let that person down, was Gil Boyd. And he was my PE teacher in 7th grade at Hunt Junior High in Tacoma, Washington. He was my football coach. And he was just a person that could build relationships with people. Just you look, I think back to him now, and I don't ever think I heard the guy yell, ever raise his voice, and played football for him from 7th, 8th through 9th grade. And I don't remember him ever. And in the same vein and token, Paul Apostle was also a teacher and coach in my junior high years, and he was the antithesis of that. Him and Coach Boyd would be the yin and yang, but still they made kind of those kind of things. And I think the hard work, the ethic, the work ethic, the grit and the resiliency started with those two. And then you go through the process, and Bob Lightfoot, my baseball coach, and he was also our defensive coordinator in high school at Wilson High School, huge impact in my life at that point. You can go through and get into college, and Ross Jelseth, who's at the Life Christian Center now in Tacoma, he came and was the head football coach of the University of Puget Sound. And I oftentimes think this too, Jake, that those mentors that you look back on at the time, you don't realize they're mentors. You may not like the message they're saying. And I didn't like the message that Coach Joseph had to say to me one time in his office, but I share that story with athletes that get in trouble all the time. Athletes that have some impulse control issues. I share that story with them all the time. And blessed that Ross reached out a year or so back through social media, through LinkedIn, and we connected a little bit through that part. Ron Reeves, I mentioned him before, the head coach of Bell Prep. He was the best man at my wedding. Big influence on me on how to treat people. His big advice, when like the voice I always shared to my coaches, is if you're getting after a kid, if you're coaching them up hard, you got to make sure you got to find them before they hit the locker room, that they know you still love them, that that you're doing and looking out for the best thing. Don't let that kid go into the locker room thinking you don't like them. You got to find them. You got to give them sugar before that. That was one of the things there. In the athletic director world, there's so many. And I will just say that if I start naming them, I'm going to forget somebody, and then I'm going to feel bad I forgot them. But Suzanne Vicks, one of them, Johnny Lee, Tara Davis. So they're the three that I've presented with over the last 2 years. I'm going to be sad when the road show's over in 2 weeks. I don't know that we'll do it again, but I might do it again with some of it. I don't know. Cole Canyard, Ellensburg High School mentor, Lauren Sandhop, Moses Lake, Washington mentor for me. There's guys in Spokane, John Barrington, is at Meade High School. All these people are just, I think you find them in life that you can garner something, you can gather something from people if you have a growth mindset, if you have that fixed mindset, if you think you've got it all. I said this last night when I was talking to some people. I said, if I knew it all, I'd be on the top of a peak in some old flowing robes and a long gray beard waiting for people to climb up to me and talk to me. That's not what I'm about. I'm about stretching myself, growing, and you got to have that growth mindset, and that's where you find your mentors.
Again, some of those names are familiar to me, just because of their stature. The schools, of course, I've heard of all of those schools, and those are some big time schools. Appreciate you sharing, and obviously it's great also to hear when mentors are still involved in your life, and it's not just this name from the past. Very cool. Let's go and jump into your NIAAA journey. We've mentioned you're a certified athletic administrator. That doesn't happen by accident. So share a little bit how you first got involved with the LTI program, and the steps leading up to becoming a CAA.
I think it started with if you peel the curtains back to see who's behind the curtains a little bit with Russ Waterman, I don't want to be unprepared. And that comes from my days as a player, right? I had never wanted to be ill prepared or not prepared for anything that I had to do. I was a film junkie. You had to kick me out of the film room, scouting reports, whatever it is. I had to know. I'm probably one of the most fierce competitors. It's getting better in old age, right? I don't, my kids learn the hard way. I love to be, shoots and ladders. I'm going to win, It's going to happen. Checker's going to win. Yeah. Don't even bring Monopoly out because I will control Boardwalk and you will never win. But I think that's where that competitive nature, I don't want anybody to point the finger and say, well, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know anything. So how do you go about that path of learning? How do you, again, fulfill that need of a growth mindset? Let's start working toward my certification. So in the first year of taking this job, I had my RAA. I did those 4 courses right off the bat. And I thought, okay, good. Let's take a break. And then I realized, there is no breaks. You got to keep going. You got to keep trying to do some things. So then I got involved a little bit with heading down into Florida. That was my first conference, my first NIAAA conference in Orlando. And I went down and I had completed all my coursework for my CAA and I sat for my test down there. And you talk about being a pregame jitters. My wife went down with me and she goes, are you gonna like calm down at any time tonight? I go, no, I'm not. I may not even sleep. She goes, why? I go, well, that's at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna be sitting with a number 2 pencil in my hand, trying to get my certification. So blessed enough, pass that course, and very, happy that I got that education. And the LTI courses, when you need answers, because this job, it's great. It's like anything in life. I can go get my administrative degree. I can get my master's in administration. I can take all the courses I need. The real life experiences, the people that are in the trenches, they aren't the professors. They are not the professors. And that's what I love about the LTI courses is it's not some guy with a doctorate or gal with a doctorate telling you how to do things. It is those that have been in the trenches. They know, and they're going to give you sound advice. They're going to answer questions for you. They're still, people that I talked to that were LTI instructors. I got their emails and I still bounce ideas off of them because of that. So that became really important to me to start thinking about how do I expand myself in my AD world? How do I meet the needs of that? How do I, do I really need to take how to incorporate a middle level weightlifting program into our district? No, but I need to get that knowledge just in case, and it's come into play. Do I really need to take how to, artificial turf and installation and artificial surfaces? No, but it's going to come into play when we pass a bond and we're going to put that in. So that became it. I'm proud to say that I'm going to push the button on submit by the end of the week on my CMAA. I'm going to submit my project. Got all my coursework done. So fingers crossed that in the next few weeks, my goal was to have it done by the state conference here in Washington State, which is in 10 days. So I've met that goal and hopefully it turns around. So for those that are listening, if you want to become an expert in what you do, that's the way to go, is through certification, the LTI course, and get involved from that aspect, and get involved with, for me, I went and took I can't remember the number now, but it enables me to go and teach courses at the state conference. 749?
790.
790. There you go. I get the 7 right. 1 out of 3 right there gets me into the Hall of Fame, right? Batting average. So, and that's the point I'm at my career, is I want to become that person that gives back, and through the LTI coursework and presenting, like I said, we're blessed that we're going to go down, the crew and I, Susanna Vick, Tara Davis, Johnny Lee, we're going to head down to California next Wednesday. We're going to present on to the California Athletic Directors Association on Thursday, fly back, land, and that will be the start of our Washington State Athletic Administration Association conference in Pasco, Washington. And I'm presenting 3 courses, 3 breakout sessions there. But luckily, I'm the support guy. I've kind of hornswoggled some good people in to say, you need to get involved and you need to learn to teach too, because you have some great ideas.
Well, as someone who spent many years on the National Certification Committee, that was just, music to our ears, and anyone listening, endorsing the LTI courses and the whole certification process. Thanks so much for doing that. And great that you've got your CMA project. Something I still do, if you want to, certainly by no means have to, is, email me that project. I'll give it a once over before you submit, because I know what the certification members are looking for. And anybody else listening, I'd be happy to do that for your project as well. Our guest today is Russ Waterman. He's a certified athletic administrator, soon to be certified master athletic administrator. We're going to take another quick break, but we're going to be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years and I loved it. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And Huddle provided our kids, our teams, our coaches tools that they needed to compete at the highest level. Huddle is going to provide you with a professional grade solution to the challenges that we all face as athletic directors. Go to huddle.com and see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school.
Hey, Jake, I just got to say that, we've been a Huddle school for a while. We went away during COVID because of broadcasting. And I'll tell you what, the one thing that we love going back in is the new Huddle Focus camera so we can broadcast. And that has just been a game changer for us, the ease of it. And then, we buy the program where they stat it out for us. And so being able to get that metric from them and is it going to be perfect? No, nobody's going to be perfect, but doggone it, it's going to be one of those things that's going to knock out 95% of the work by coaches. So I'm so happy about Huddle again.
Oh, well, gosh, I'll definitely share that with our friends at Huddle. And I feel the same way. I was apprehensive when, they were talking to me as an AD about volleyball and basketball and our other sports. But boy, our coaches just loved it. And the focus camera, again, our coaches, they're programming that themselves from their cell phone. Appreciate that
Mm-hmm.
shout out.
Yeah.
Russ, you already did this, but I'm going to kind of put you on the spot again. One of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So, what are some more things that you do at your school with your kids, your coaches, your programs that you would consider best practices, things that you're particularly proud of?
Oh, you know what? I'm proud of my coaches. That's the thing I'm proud of. I say this all the time that I would put our coaching staff up against any coaching staff in the state of Washington, and I think we'd be, pound for pound, inch for inch, just as good as them. In our community, we have great kids, we have good athletes. We don't see the superstar athlete. We see really good athletes coming in, but for us, our best practices is trying to get the best out of that kid, trying to get the best out of them as a person. So one of our best practices, make sure that we're seeing the kid, right? We want to see them as who they are. We don't want to identify them as, Joe Blow, basketball player, Joe Blow wrestler. That's what they do. That isn't who their identity is. So one of our best practices is make sure that we're building relationships. And we did that through a 3-year go with three-dimensional coaching. I was exposed to that down in Orlando in a breakout session in between with Jeff Duke. So we brought that in. So that becomes one of our best practices. I think from the AD perspective and role, one of the things that I like to do with my coaches is stay connected with them, get on that relational aspect. So we do what we call a check-in, all-in meeting. If you're an in-season coach, you're just going to set up a meeting with me weekly. It could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour. It doesn't matter. You're going to control the meeting as the coach. We can do it in person. I can come to you. You can come to me. We can do it online. We can do it on the phone, whatever it is. But it's that one way that we can stay connected as an athletic department. And sometimes with my coaches, we don't talk one athletic thing. I know that one coach came in for their meeting, and we spent the first 45 meeting dealing with her some issues with her family and relationship issues there. And I think as an AD, that's got to be your role too. You've got to be the person that can be open, that they can confide in if need be, but you've got to be there to support them in that as a friend, as a mentor, and kind of as their supervisor. The other part of that meeting is if you're an out of season coach, once a month. I coined the term from our girls golf coach who says, he's really trying not to have 90-day athletes, right? Season starts, season end, they don't have connection anymore. I don't want to have 90-day coaches, right? I want to stay connected with them. Hey, here's what's going on at the state level. Here's what's going on at the local level. Anything I can do as you're prepping for next season. What are those kind of things? Anything you do? Are you coming to the barbecue at the end of the types of things that we do? So I think that from a best practice is good. looking at what we try to do preparation wise with our coaching staff, annual meetings before the season where we talk about, not just what's required, but we talk about what we're about. I really believe that that is a crucial piece of being successful as a program and athletic director beyond the scoreboard. Is are you building your culture? I'm a culture junkie. I mean, culture is king, and what you accept is the culture you have. You can have all the nice banners, and you can have all the nice swag, and you can have all the nice this, and you can have all the nice sayings. But if what you accept is not in line with that, that's the culture you have. So we really try to promote that with our athletes. I mentioned before, our Wildcats of the Month. We do Eastmont Leadership Academy, where we're actually working through workbooks from Jeff Jansen and the Jeff Jansen Sports Leadership Center on being an accountable athlete, be a committed athlete, and leader. So those are some of the best practices that we try to do with our coaches, with our athletes. I'll bring in the officials. We try to do some really good things with our officials and make them feel a part of our program, not in the way that we're going to get every call, but that we know that they are crucial to us being successful, right? Without them, it's just recess. And so we try to make sure they're prepared, their safety, they're treated as human beings, and from that standpoint. The other aspect is parents. How do you do parent education? So we have a parent meeting before every sports season. We talk about expectations that we want for you in our program. How do you communicate with the coaching staff? How do you ask questions of the coaching staff? How do you be involved with our booster club? So those are just some of the best practices that we do.
Well, again, really appreciate you sharing all those things. I can tell that your heart's definitely in it, and it makes me want to make that trip out there to Washington, see your program in action. We gave out your contact information earlier. We'll do it again at the end of the show, but for our NIAAA members, you can also find Russ's contact information on the NIAAA portal. And once again, our guest is Russ Waterman, Certified Athletic Administrator from East Wenatchee, Washington. We're going to take another break, but we're coming back with even more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Snap Mobile for their support of the podcast. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you as an athletic director do your job better. You've got Snap Connect, Snap Manage, Snap Store, and of course, there's Snap Raise, their fundraising platform. We've used it at our school with great success, and they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where they'll give you your funding before you actually do your fundraiser. I don't think anybody else offers that. Go to snapraise.com, check out the entire suite, and start raising money for your program. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Russ, one of the questions that we've been asking pretty much since the podcast started has to do with this idea of toughness. 100 years ago, when I was in high school, our coaches would say things like, come on, you got to be tough, or come on, Jake, you got to suck it up. And I think we kind of knew what they meant, and we did it. In the many years since I was in high school, I think we found much better ways to coach our kids and encourage our kids. But I still think that developing toughness, toughness in sport, toughness in life is important. So here's my question to you. How can an AD or a coach help a Generation Z kid to develop toughness while also being aware of the many challenges that they are going through that I never had to go through way back in the 70s? Do you have any advice for us?
I do. And I love the segue that you're talking about with, Gen Z versus you in the 70s, me in the 80s. My son's in the 90s, late 90s, and well, no, it has to be 2000s. I don't think it'd been 90s. And I think, the one thing that I would say we expand on is that the challenges may present themselves differently, but the challenges were the same challenges that were for you. And I'm sure your coaches in the 70s were, you need to cut your hair. Why are you wearing those clothes? Oh my God, what are you doing about this? I know in the 80s is, what are you listening to that rap music for? What is that all about? Whatever the distraction is at this time, for us, it's this. It's this for kids. It is social media. It is everything else. So we really have to approach it, I think, in the same way. And it's ironic that you talk about this because I was on a podcast yesterday uh, talking with, one of my mentors that I didn't mention was Brian Kane from Mental Performance Mastery. And he and I built a good relationship over 2 years, and I've been certified through his program. And then I'm working with another AD in Yakima, Jeff Jameson, for our presentation at WASA about the same thing. How do we create this mental resiliency, toughness, mental imagery, all that stuff, all aligned? And I think as an AD and as a coach, it has to be intentional. And you need to start with, you got to realize these kids are a blank canvas. They don't know how to prepare to be an athlete yet. They've had the coach, maybe they've had the nurturing coach, or maybe they've had the stern coach, whatever it is. You got to get tough out there. You got to do this. They don't have the tool set. Right? They don't have that mindset. So you got to give it to them. So one of the things we do here is that we've incorporated this process with mental performance mastery and again, looking at social emotional learning. There was Hannah Olson works for the University of Washington in their I want to say athletic leadership center is the official title for it, the Center for Leadership and Athletics. So how are we meeting those social emotional learning needs of our athletes? And when you look at those aspects of it, right, the 5 aspects out of the Castle report: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And all those things, we take one of those pies, and we can say, oh my God, look at this. Our athletes have no idea what responsible decision making is. Look what they do every day. We're not teaching them how to do that. And athletics gives you the platform. The athletics gives you the canvas to teach that in responsible decision making. Let's just take that one for right now, since I mentioned it. And that's going to be one of those things that we're going to say, well, if they're doing irresponsible things, that's a habit. It's not their upbringing. It's not necessarily their home life and environment. It could be a factor, but they have habits that cause them to make those decisions. So we need to retrain them by doing the right things, the right habits. And let's put it in an athletic sense. They decide to skip workouts. Okay, they don't go to workouts. They don't go to weight room. They don't go to the open gyms or whatever it is. That's a choice. That's a bad habit because they're making bad choices. So we have to give them that ability to say, track your good choices, and then give themselves an accountability partner that's going to help them stay accountable, right, within the team. Those are things that you can use in that. If you talk about self-management, again, an SEL strategy, how do we deal with self-management? How do we deal with awareness? How many times have we seen this, Jake? You're an AD, you're a coach, you're an athlete. How many times have you ever seen this where a kid has a complete mental meltdown in a competition, right? Turns the ball over 3 times. Now it's pulling at the jersey. Now it's the palms up, which is the worst look for an athlete. Now it's a chip at the official. Now it's on the bench. Now it's a kick of the bench. It's a swat of his wall. Those are all things because they don't know to handle the fact that they've gone into a series of emotional distress, mental distress, and they don't know how to get themselves back. A simple thing like talking about the signal light, theory. You got green, yellow, red. When you're green, everything's going good. Your body language is good. You look the part, you talk the part, you walk the part. Oh, something bad happens. I don't process it. I should process it. I recognize it. I'm gonna go ahead and release that. I'm gonna have something to snap me back into focus, and I'm going on next play, one play at a time. But these kids don't realize that. We haven't taught them that. So now they move into yellow or they move into red, where those things. Look at that. Siri wants to get involved with the conversation on my phone. We don't teach them that. So one of the things that I love talking to athletes about is, can you recognize when performance wise you're not in green anymore? You're out of control. You're in that animal beast mode now. You're either going to do a couple things, right? You're going to be in a prayer mode. God, please help me get through this. Let me make this play. Let me make this free throw. Let me hit this ball. Or you're going to be in the primal deal, right? You've seen all the batters. They got 2 strikes on them. They don't like the umpire. They're looking back there and they're just grinding the bat, right? I'm going to do anything. I'm primal right now. Now I'm almost in a rage, or now I'm trying to be too perfect, right? Instead of realizing that I need to say, take a deep breath. That's the one thing I learned in my life right now. Just think about it. Anytime I'm stressed, stop, breathe. One big cleansing breath usually helps. And then you got to have that again. You got to recognize, breathe. You got to release it. Have some kind of trigger, whether it's smack of the hands, tie every shoelace, whatever it is, and then you move forward. And that's again, those are teaching skills, right? That's part of the mental toughness part of it. It's not just setting your mind that I can't be denied. And I think a lot of kids get to that, right? That mental toughness, I'm not going to be denied no matter what. they don't know how to get there. They don't know how to get over that wall. So again, how does your body language come to that? Do we teach kids how to have the right body language when they're performing? Do we talk about what's their self-talk, their feelings? Do they work through those processes? Those are all things I think, and coaches, I'd love to have this. I'd love to have this. If we set up a site for everybody that's going to listen to this podcast to be able to log into the site and answer this one question for us. How much is performance mental versus physical? And I would venture to guess it's going to be 90 to 95% that people are going to come back and say performance is 95% mental, but we spend 95% of the time, if not 100% of the time, only coaching the physical aspect of it. And that's the thing that's tough with our coaches at Eastmont is I go, you gotta coach the mental side of it. You have to.
Yeah, I was going to say there are so many, and again, just like anything else, there's great ones, good ones, maybe not so good ones, but there's a ton of great mental performance coaches and programs out there. But you know this, if you go to your coaches and say, "Hey, we're going to bring in a mental performance expert. They've done X, Y, and Z championships, et cetera." Oh, geez, I can't cut my practice time down. We got to work on this. We got to work on that. They readily admit the value of mental performance training, but yet they just can't seem to let go of that practice time. I guess that's where we come in as ADs.
Yeah. Well, I equate it to the classroom. The teacher has to be able to teach the content, but you've got to be able to check for learning and all that good stuff. If all we're doing is the physical aspect, because I've got to get these plays and I've got to get those. Actually, you don't. You look at all the really good successful programs, they, as you get up in the realm professional, it becomes more intricate in what they're doing. But when you look at good high school programs, it's simple. It's the KISS system, right? And they're spending time being perfect. I shouldn't use the word perfect, being very good, excellent at doing the little things really, really well, right? And not trying to do a lot of things really, really average. And then they spend that time, talking about the mental aspect also.
Oh, absolutely. The whole less is more, plays out the higher you go. I was never happier, and I don't think I was ever as effective as when I finally cut down from 3-hour football practices down to 2 hours. And that was warm up, workout and everything. The kids were more refreshed. They, performed better. The coaches were great. Wives were happy too. So again, being good at those little things. Russ, I could truly go on for a long time. I've already made you miss one appointment, so I won't do that. But I think we're gonna have to get you scheduled for a follow-up interview. But we're not done yet today. We always end with the athletic director's toolbox, and you certainly showed that you know your way around the world of athletics. Where we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor the Toolbox segment. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Russ Waterman is going to put into his new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors frequently only hear back from that 2%, the squeaky wheel parent or the frustrated student athlete, and we need to hear back from them so we can affect positive change. But we also need to hear back from the 98% that really love and support our program, and that's where Athletic Surveys comes in. They can create a custom survey for your school to help you take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with that squeaky wheel parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them create that survey for you and help you take your athletic program from good to great. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time. We've been visiting with Russ Waterman, certified athletic administrator, soon to be a certified master athletic administrator from East Wenatchee, Washington. And it's time for him to contribute to the toolbox. Russ, you've been doing this for a while, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new AD on the very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
All right. So the first one is actually, I'm going to give credit to Lauren Sandhop, one of my mentors from Moses Lake High School. And this is a physical one. As you know, we're all over the place, all over the time. We have multiple events going on at any given time. Have your emergency AD kit ready to go in your vehicle, whether it's your personal car or if you're in a Gator or you're in a golf cart. Have that tub ready to go. Batteries, aux cords, power cords, first aid kit, flashlights, whatever it is that could possibly go wrong in the AD world, have it with you at any given time. The other thing that goes in there, warm jacket, rain jacket, and any other thing that's going to be for any foul weather that's going to roll in at any given time. Right. And you can go into the back of my truck. The back seat of my truck probably has 3 coats, 3 hats, another set of shoes, and then the kit of things that you need to do. So go into battle prepared, right? Have your AD kit. The next toolkit that I'm going to give you is conceptual and self-help. And I'm going to plug myself. When you get the next episode of the IA magazine, there's going to be an article in there from me about getting a drink out of a fire hose. And it talks about managing the AD stress level and the difference, every which way you're going to get pulled. Okay. So I go read the article. My email's in there too. Call me, email me. Don't call me, email me. But anyway, you want to try to manage your week, and there's 168 hours in a week, and you want to be able to compartmentalize those things and book out your 168, starting with your personal health, family time, meals, exercise, stress relief. Book those in that 168, in that 7 days, and live those. Do those things every day. Find the time. You have to reconnect with your family. You need to reconnect with your spirit, and you need to reconnect with the physical body. So the 168 calendar, and in that, learn to do every week or every night before you go to bed, your MIT for the next day. Most important tasks, no more than 3. You have to get done. Schedule those in on your 168. This is going to save you time and stress, and you're going to be playing offense on your day, not defense on your day. And then the last one is feedback. Feedback is how we get better. And you just heard an ad for Life Track and athlete surveys. Larry Ledgerwood, great guy, state of Washington guy. I actually had Larry's group do our comprehensive program review for Title IX this year in Washington State. You got to do that, every 3 years. And I've done it twice in my AD world, and that is a bear. It is just a bear. So I actually had Larry do that, to do that. So create surveys for your district duties, like we're talking about. Every year you need to do those for Title IX. You need to create those, you need to make sure that you're abiding by the Title IX rules. And where can you expand your programs and get better at it? Number 2, parent feedback. They are on your team. Parents are on our team. You have to get their feedback. Sometimes that feedback isn't what you want to hear, but it's still feedback, and it comes from a place that they're trying to make you better, your program better, and it's better for their kid. So give it its due diligence. And then the last one second to last one you're going to survey is the athletes at the end of every season. You should do an athlete satisfaction survey out of every season. How did it go? What did you learn? And be very intentional about that, to what is the information you're trying to gather back. And then the last one is have your coaches evaluate you. A little survey. How am I doing as an AD? That is the 4 areas I think in regards to surveys are going to help you set your plans for the next year, correct major course corrections that you need to, or just tweak little things that make it, run a little bit better for you.
Well, you probably saw me scribbling down the notes there on those tools. Great stuff. I love the emergency AD toolkit. I think many of us probably have bits and pieces of that, but you're absolutely right. Having all that stuff together, and again, the surveys, the feedback, so very valuable. Thanks for giving Larry a shout out there.
No worries.
Russ, this has been really cool, and we've already done it once, but let's do it again. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, an email. Like I said, if they go to the NIAAA site, I'm in there because I serve on the publications committee. So I think my email's there, but it is WATERMAN. So Waterman R at Eastmont, EASTMONT eastmont206.org. So Waterman at eastmont206.org. Shoot me an email. I'll get in touch with you. What I like to do is just schedule a time, do like a 20-minute Zoom meeting, because I like to talk to people. Emails get really, really long. I'll help you wherever I can, give you ideas wherever I can, whatever.
Listeners, sounds like you got a great resource here. Russ, thanks again for spending this time with us. I know it's incredibly busy for you right now, and all the best moving forward with spring sports.
Oh, we're pleasure. Mother Nature's going to give us some sunshine soon. We'll be okay.
Okay. For our listeners, we appreciate you listening, and we upload the Zoom videos of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Thanks again. Come back next time for another great interview on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.